Here we go. It says live, but I don't see anything. Tell me if you hear it, Billy.
I'm not even seeing it yet. It's not unlisted again, is it?
I don't know. I don't see it though. Here it is. It wasn't up for a second. Did you get it?
Oh, there it is.
What's up, everyone? I was just saying to Billy, it's not up. What's going on? I'm just talking to nobody. What's happening? We're going to talk about a little
Sounds good.
music CSI today. For those of you that watched my last video on Led Zeppelin on getting the guitar sound from Ramble On, and how being able to recognize what you're hearing beyond ear training, right? Let's say that, before I start, discount code for today's live stream is RB821. It's 50% off my guitar, my YouTube Instagram transcription bundle with the Beato book 4.0, and 30% off my ear training course. Those of you that follow me on Instagram, if you don't, follow me Instagram at RickBeato1, but I did an ear training video on Instagram, a quick one with intervals this past week, and ear training is incredibly important for this, especially for this topic I'm going to talk about today, because it's how to relate things like knowing that is a perfect fifth interval, for example. Here, let me play it a little bit louder there, okay? Or that this is a minor 9 or minor add 9 arpeggio, okay? Now, what I can do, I can tell from the sound of that it's a minor add 9 arpeggio, because I know the sound of that. I know what the order of notes is when I hear. There's no notes outside of those notes, and the notes are A, B, C, E, okay? Now, I'd have to have perfect pitch to understand that, but I don't have perfect pitch, but I can recognize a minor add 9 sound. In the same way that I can recognize a metal snare from a wooden snare, okay? Or if you have tone things, because I did this demonstration in my last video for those that in case you hadn't watched it, where I took the acoustic guitar sound from Ramble On, Jimmy Page, which I've always wondered about. How did he get this sound? Because it doesn't sound like any acoustic guitar that I own or that I've ever owned. And as a matter of fact, I have a Martin D28, which Jimmy Page uses on songs like Stairway to Heaven. And I know what that sounds like. And Ramble On is nothing like that. It's a much thinner sound. And I used it. Well, you have to watch the video. If you haven't seen it, I basically took a picture of Jimmy Page that he posted on his Instagram from Zeppelin 2 and did my own CSI on it. Meaning, I looked at it, I said, okay, what kind of acoustic is that? Call my friend Dave. He tells me what kind of acoustic is. I looked at the microphone and I thought, I have that mic. That's an old AKG D30, which is from the 60s. And I essentially recreated the sound because I know it, that I know the timbre of it. And part of ear training, beyond understanding a major chord and a minor chord, or a dominant seventh chord, or being able to do dictation of a melody, or recognizing intervals, is also identifying timbres. This is a very important thing. If you're a music producer, if you are anything related to if you're an orchestrator, understanding timbre, how instruments work together to create a sound, how you may have a viola doubling another particular instrument that will give it a certain timbre, the combination of those, or knowing how Angus Young got his guitar sound in Back in Black, whatever it is. Which there's a combination of a lot of things. Like, for example, in this Led Zeppelin video that I did on Ramble On, it's the acoustic guitar, the microphone, the mic placement, the mic preamp, compression, whether there's compression going into the tape machine. It was done on tape. You can hear a little bit of tape distortion on it. Or it could be mic pre-distortion, being able to recognize the difference between these things. This comes from years of studying this. But my basis for this is from ear training. This actually comes from me recognizing that that's a major chord, or that's a sus4 chord, or that's a sus2 chord, right? So I know those things, and my ear is informed by what I'm hearing. And then the next step of it is to start to recognize things that are beyond your instrument and timbres of different things, okay? Let's take a snare drum, for example. So there's a lot of different types of snare drums. When I first became a producer, I was like, okay, I can tell what I think is a good snare drum sound, but what really makes a good snare drum sound? What are the components of a snare drum sound? Is it a rim shot? Is it a center hit without a rim shot? Is it a metal drum? A metal drum could be brass, it could be chrome over brass, it could be steel, aluminum. Is it a wooden drum? Now, there's many types of wood, right? You could have a maple snare drum, you could have a poplar snare drum, you could have a Jourdan, which is a I used to have a Brady snare that's made out of an Australian wood called Jourdan. Is it does it have reinforcement hoops? Is it a stave drum, meaning made up of multiple pieces glued together, right? So there's all these kind of things. Does it have a 42, does the snares have 42 snares on the actual snare itself, meaning a wide snare, right? Is it a little buzzier sounding? Or take a guitar, for example. There's many types of distortion pedals and fuzz pedals. For example, here, this is a TS9, Ibanez TS9. This has a very particular sound that's different than the 808 Ibanez tube screamer, right? Or if you take fuzz, this is a big muff, old school big muff pedal here, right? That pedal sounds different than this tone bender here. This tone bender has a very unique sound. Those of you that know what this pedal is know that this has a very different sound, right? Or this, which is one of my favorite fuzzes, a Fox tone machine, okay? Very, very particular sound. It has an octave on it. Or this is a color sound fuzz pedal here, right? Sola sound, similar to the tone bender. This is an Octavia here. This is like a Jimi Hendrix octave fuzz. Now, all these have their own particular song, but being able to recognize them, what it is, will enable you to actually get these tones that you're hearing in your head. It may just be a sound that you're hearing in your head, and you do not know how to get that sound, right? But you can say, I used to say things like, that kick drum needs to be puffier, everything. My buddy Billy, that when I first started producing, he would always laugh. He'd say, puffy, what does that mean? Like this air, low-end air sound that I wanted to hear after the initial attack that gave it its low-end content, right? And gave it a particular sound. Or if I said, no, it needs more, or if it needs more attack, I would use the word attack, but not knowing if it needed 2K or 3K or 6K. Okay, those are frequency ranges. Now, if you boost in those different ranges, 2K versus 6K, it's a very different sound. And being able to recognize these things by ear is related to ear training. Okay, so when I started on this quest as a producer, I would my assistant Ken would always laugh, because on the weekends when we I'd have a band in town or whatever, or if we didn't have a band in town, I would have him come to the studio and we would practice getting sounds. We'd listen to famous records and try and recreate the sounds off all of our favorite sounds off records, whether it was drum sounds, bass sounds, acoustic guitar sounds, you name it. We would try to do that. And to me, that was the most fun part, and really the most difficult part of being a producer, being an engineer, is to develop your ear to hear on these different labels and recognize timbres of things, okay? Guitars have particular, people ask me, okay, I have a bunch of Les Pauls here. It's like, well, Rick, why do you need 5 Les Pauls? Well, because they're all different. Well, what's different about them? Well, let's see. My Les Paul Custom is a different weight than I have a Pelham Blue Standard there. Has different pickups than I have a Gold Top right next to the Custom. It's right, where is it? Right, there's the Gold Top. That has P90s. Well, P90s are very different sounding than a PAF. Or that red one back there is a Les Paul Deluxe. The Les Paul Deluxe has mini humbuckers on it. Mini humbuckers are kind of in between a single coil and a full-size humbucker. And it just has a very different tone in the mid-range. If you don't know what these things sound like, the only way you do know is if you actually record them and listen to them next to each other, right? Well, another thing that to do is to be able to recognize things like microphone, what type of microphone it is. Because I always tell people microphone is an EQ. When I put a microphone on something, a person's voice, it EQs it a particular way. If somebody has a very bright sounding voice that's harsh, I'm not going to put a bright sounding harsh a microphone that accentuates the top end or upper mids. I'm not going to put that on a singer. I'll go for a darker mic, maybe a Shure SM7 or something like that, right? As opposed to, Billy, somebody says we have an echo. Do we have an echo?
No.
There's no echo. Okay, refresh your thing for anybody saying that I have an echo. Anyways, so these are things that I've, over the years of listening in great detail to records, being able to identify the sounds that I'm hearing, and then trying to recreate them. So I'm going to take this series that I did. A lot of people in the comments section of my video I just did on the Ramble On guitar sound, recreating the sound. I think that's going to be a new series. And I saw people in the comments section talk about sounds to recreate. Alex Van Halen's snare sound, or Chris Squire's bass sound on Roundabout, things like that, which I think is fascinating, actually. I've not tried to recreate those sounds, but I know I have an idea on how to get those from listening to this. Okay, from listening to them for so many years, I have those sounds in my head, just like I have the sounds when I'm doing ear training, when I recognize an interval, the difference between a major third and a minor six. Okay, I see somebody said the St. Anger snare, recreating the St. Anger snare. That was in the comments so many times, which is funny, right? Or Eric Johnson, Cliffs of Dover. I see that at the Harvard Yard here in the comments, that particular sound. And Eric has a really particular sound that when I interviewed him, I said it sounds like a violin. When I hear his sound, it's like, yeah, it kind of sounds like a violin, right? And kind of like Alan Holdsworth as well, but it's different. Alan Holdsworth has a very different sound than Eric Johnson, but his sound's kind of like a violin as well. Maybe like a viola, something like that. And in the low register, like if you think about the sound on Airbag by Radiohead, for those of you that know that guitar sound that happens at the beginning, it sounds like a cello. Well, one of the reasons is that I think there's a cello in there with it. That's why. But anyways, so I'm going to continue on with that series, talking about how to get different sounds depending on what people are interested in. I saw a lot of different things on those particular things I mentioned, the Alex Van Halen snare sound and St. Anger. I heard that in there, but there's a lot of guitar sounds that I would love to. She Said by the Beatles is a great, very unique sound that I would love to recreate, and I kind of have an idea of what that is, but So that's something that I want to get into. So I think that could be a new series. So I wanted to talk also about this thing. I was talking with Aaron earlier about the whole concept of music theory, right? Making music theory videos, and the idea that music theory is really not a theory, right? It's an exact thing. Whether it's is it really a theory that you call this C major, C, E, and G? Is that really a theory? That's really like a fact, right? In mathematics, with my kids, we talk about math facts, right? 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 4 is 8, 8 divided by 4 is 2, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Those are called math facts. Well, this chord here is F major. Okay, that's a fact. F, A, C in any order is an F major chord. So this idea of music theory is really not a theory, right? It's these are things that have been agreed upon for centuries. The theory part would be if I'm trying to think what would be an application that you would actually call a theory, because so many things are just agreed upon facts, right? Key centers, the circle of fifths is not a theory. These are generally agreed upon things, that 2 sharps is the key of D or B minor, right? 1 flat is B flat major or D minor. These are facts, music facts, right? Let's see here. Functional harmony. Yeah, I mean these are things that I think that I want to start talking about them in a different way. Rick teaches music theory. No, Rick teaches music fact, right? Would be a theory on why these are facts. Would theory be why these are facts? Dean, very good. So that's an interesting question. But I think that the answer is, why do you need to know these things? Why is it important to understand these music facts or music theory? Why? Well, it's a way to communicate with people about music when you're not playing it. Okay. There are principles that I did an interview with it was for a podcast on Nirvana recently, and they were asking me to describe why Kurt Cobain's melodies were, why I think that they're complex. Now, how do you describe things without playing them? I mean, can you really describe? This is where music theory comes in to talk about these things. How do I describe a sound? How do you describe the St. Anger snare sound? Can you really describe it? Or can you just play it or match it, and then you kind of agree upon the fact that, oh, that sounds just like it, or that sounds close? When I did this with the Jimmy Page guitar in the video, the acoustic guitar, I saw the guitar in the picture. I called Dave Honorato. I said, Dave, what kind of guitar is this? He said, looks like a Vox acoustic from the 60s. And I said, is that something that could that be the sound for Ramble On? He said, yeah. And that particular guitar, I think it's an EKO, was made in Italy. They made them. It's the same guitar. Jimmy Page, I think that's the kind he actually played. But it was made by the same company and made for Vox. And it has a bolt-on neck. And I started thinking, okay, bolt-on neck would have more of like a cross. To me, before I even heard it, would it be a cross between an acoustic and electric? And I thought, that Ramble On is it sounds like it doesn't have a lot of bottom end. It does, but it has a different kind of low end. And it always confused me because I never played a guitar sound like that. So I found this guitar on Reverb. I bought it months ago, actually. And I just had never made the video. And as soon as I got it, pulled it out of the case, I played it, and I said, oh my God, that's it. That's the sound. That sounds exactly like Ramble On. But then it's like, well, how do you actually capture this? How do you capture it? And then, if you don't have the right microphone on it, it's not going to sound right. So, so that is, that's where the CSI came in here. Okay, I look at the picture, I look at the microphone, and I say, I recognize that microphone because I own that. I own that microphone. That's definitely an AKG D30. That is a mic that I know that they used back at that time period because I worked with a producer in the past who actually assisted on Zeppelin 3. And he said that on Zeppelin 3, the sessions he assisted on, that they used AKG D30 on John Bonham's kick drum. It was funny. We were going through a tour of this studio that used to be here, Southern Tracks, where Brendan O'Brien used to engineer out of and mix. Brendan O'Brien did all the Pearl Jam records other than the first one, all the Stuntable Pilots records. Great producer. One of the best rock producers ever. Rage Against the Machine, all their records but the first he produced and engineered and mixed. And we were going through, and this producer, we're walking in the mic locker, and the guy pulls out this AKG D30, and he shows, the engineer says, the guy that was giving us the tour says, this is the same mic that they used on John Bonham's kick drum. And the guy that I was with says, yeah, I remember when I mic'd it up. It's like, wow. That was pretty hilarious, right? I remember and he just looked at him, he said, oh, and he started laughing. Both of them started laughing. But one of the reasons that I bought that particular mic years ago was because of this, because of that. And I recognize that sound. I recognize the sound of it. And that mic has a very particular way that it records mid-range. And when you put it on a bass drum, it has a really vintage vibe. It sounds like a John Bonham kick drum, especially when you put it on a properly tuned, double-headed 26 by 14 inch Ludwig kick drum, right? So anyways, how does this relate to ear training? Once again, let me give you the discount code for my book and my Instagram transcription bundle. It's RB821, which is today's date. It's 50% off my transcription. It's like 650 page book, PDF, and for my ear training course, 30% off that same discount code, RB821. Go to my website. That's where you get it. That's how I make a living for my channel. It's not from my Zeppelin video got demonetized, even though I only used the very first couple bars of Ramble On, instant demonetization. And I thought, okay, well, they're not going to demonetize it because I'm flipping. I played the E, da, da, and then boom, switch to the other sound. And I kept doing that, and it didn't matter. My guitar that I recorded sounded so similar to Zeppelin that the algorithm, the AI bots or whatever, recognized it and thought it was Led Zeppelin, okay, and demonetized the video. Once again, that was an example of fair use for sure, no question about it. That was definitely, I would say, because the video was not about Ramble On. The video was about engineering and capturing a particular sound. And that would absolutely be a case of fair use there. But they've been doing this. I see Aaron just said on here he's been getting demonetized for cover videos. And anytime I've done cover videos, I get demonetized. So that, that's just, you can fight the stuff too. You can fight it. But on any of the videos like that, I don't have any control over the ad, where the ads get placed, if they're placed in the middle of the video, anything like that. I have no control over it. Once they put it in, once it gets demonetized, it's out of my control. So I tell everybody on here, use an ad blocker if you watch my videos. If you have the skip if there's the 5-second video that you can skip over it. And the videos that are monetized, it doesn't matter. This video, you'll see if you watch it later, you'll see an ad before it. When it hits skip, boom, and then you shouldn't see any more ads for the rest of it. Okay. Anyway, so this is going to be part of a new series that I'm going to do. This, recreating the sound of. But one of the reasons that I want to talk about this is that that actually doing real ear training by doing intervals, knowing sonorities, qualities of chord, whether they're major, minor, diminished, augmented, sus4, sus2, Lydian triad, being able to recognize those on my end, me as a musician, when I got into engineering, which I started at age 37. I had never done any engineering on anything. I started producing at age 37. I'd been in studios, not that much before then. So everything I learned was out of books, out of asking questions, and I got to eventually work with many of the best mixing engineers and recording engineers out there, period. Legendary people that told me how they did things. So I was very fortunate, and that's one of the reasons that I come on here and I share all these things, because studios have gone, there are no recording studios anymore, and people still need to have these skills. I really believe this. This is why I get on here and teach these things, because you just cannot go to places and find what I would consider credible videos by people that actually have been taught or are experienced professionals in doing this. Another thing, you can go on YouTube and find camera demos. There's plenty of them. If you have the new Sony A7S III versus A7 III versus A7 IIIS or whatever they call it, you can see the comparison between them. They can show you what they look like one next to the other. But what's difficult is going on and, let's say I want to hear a Sound City amplifier or an orange Mad amp. Okay, that I have. I have an orange Mad amp. Now I have not made a video on it yet. I've only seen. I saw it in. You see it in the background. Jimmy Page played his theremin through it, and Peter Green, on some of his albums, at one point in his career played through an orange Mad amp, and those were the first orange amps. Were made by Matt Mathias, who started Mad amp. So there's not a good sounding demo of that on YouTube, but I'm going to make a video that has that amp in it. I'm going to make a video that has my Laney clip that I have here. It's the Black Sabbath sound, the Tony Iommi sound. And that may be a video of capturing the sound, is actually using that amp for that video to show people what that sounds like and everything. Because these things these amplifiers aren't being made anymore. Many of them are 50 years old. But I want to hear, to me, it's important to have good recordings out there that anyone can reference it at any time, okay, to be able to mimic these, even if they're using an Axe Effects, a Kemper, whatever. If you have a great recording through a great mic pre's and you can listen to it and say, okay, I can mimic that, or if I want to get a Black Sabbath type sound or whatever, you know what it sounds like, and it's properly recorded and captured on YouTube here for anybody to learn from. So anyway, so that's my thing about this. This is one of the reasons why I do YouTube, is this. And if you guys have any particular things that you want to see me cover as far as the capturing any particular sound from a record, from a classic record or modern record, doesn't matter. Put it in the comments section here. I'm going to be coming out with a new What Makes a Song Great this week. I have a new interview with John Anderson, the singer for Yes, that I just did, which is absolutely fascinating. We talked a lot about recording those those Yes records and all the early Yes records, and it was absolutely fascinating. I have to finish editing the video though, but I have it in the can, ready to come out this week. Anyways, okay, you guys are the best. RB821, 50% off my 650-page PDF bundle. This is how I make a living. You want to support the channel, that's a way to do it. Check out my ear training course, 30% off, RB821. You can become a member of the Beato Club, or you can buy something in the store. You know, if you already have this and you want to support the channel, but that's how the channel, this is how I'm able to keep doing this stuff and making these videos. You guys are amazing. Really appreciate it. We will talk soon, okay? Thank you so much for tuning in. See ya.